chapter 9, text number 26. And it's rather a long purport, so I'll just read it a little bit at a time. But we can begin by offering obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Braya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Sadharane. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, which is the most confidential part of knowledge, text number 26. Patram pushpam palam doyam yome bhakta priyachati tadaham bhakti uparitam ajnami priyatatmanaha. Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Purport. For the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, in order to achieve a permanent blissful abode for eternal happiness. The process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor, without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf, a little water, or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. No one, therefore, can be barred from Krishna consciousness because it is so easy and universal. Who is such a fool that he does not want to be Krishna conscious by this simple method and thus obtain the highest perfectional life of eternity, bliss, and knowledge? Krishna wants only loving service and nothing more. Krishna accepts even a little flower from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of offering from a non-devotee. He is not in need of anything from anyone because he is self-sufficient, and yet he accepts the offering of his devotee in exchange of love and affection. To develop Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse because in order to declare more emphatically that bhakti or devotional service is the only means to approach Krishna, no other condition, such as becoming a brahmana, a learned scholar, a very rich man, or a great philosopher, can induce Krishna to accept some offering. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never causal. The process is eternal. It is direct action, service to the absolute whole. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Sadharane. If we want to make friendship with a great personality, then we have to know how to do it. So Krishna, he says that the only thing that he's actually interested in is bhakti or love. There's nothing else that can actually satisfy him. Because according to the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has stated in the 10th chapter that everything comes from him. So there's nothing that within our perception, within our conception, doesn't come from Krishna. Therefore, the only thing that we can offer to Krishna is bhakti. And without offering bhakti or love to Krishna, then it's very, very difficult to actually make any progress in devotional service, at least. So if we want to transfer ourselves to Krishna Loka, if we actually want to go back to the spiritual world, we have to learn how to love Krishna. So there are 6 principles of loving devotion. Patram dadati pratigrinati, uyam akiti pritsati, punkte bojayate chaiva, shadvidam pratilakshanam. Sri Rupa Goswami says, offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, and inquiring confidentially, offering prasadam, and accepting prasad. These are the 6 loving exchanges between one devotee and another. So we have to offer something to Krishna. Now, of course, Krishna owns everything. So what do we have to offer to Krishna? So Prabhupada, he states in a lecture, the installation of Rukmini Dwarkadish in 1969, in July 69. Actually, it's Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkanath, the little deities of Rukmini Dwarkadish. So first of all, Prabhupada talks about Vamsidas Babaji, that he was talking with his deity. Prabhupada said in that lecture that if you qualify, then Krishna will actually talk with you. And if not, if we think Krishna is a statue and we treat Krishna like a statue, then he'll remain a statue to us forever. When in the story of the Brahmin and the old man who were on pilgrimage, they came to Vrindavan, and there was the Gopal deity. Now, the elderly Brahmin was an aristocratic Brahmin, rich and aristocratic Brahmin, but he was very pleased by the service of the younger Brahmin. And so during the pilgrimage, he offered the younger Brahmin his daughter in marriage. But the younger Brahmin said, this is not a very good idea, because certainly your relatives are not going to be very happy with this, because at least in the culture at that time, a poor Brahmin would not marry the daughter of a rich Brahmin, or an uneducated Brahmin would not marry the daughter of an educated Brahmin. But the elder Brahmin said, no, it's all right. It's my daughter and I can do as I like. And therefore, because you're rendering me so much nice service, I'm going to offer you my daughter. The younger Brahmin said, all right, if that's your desire, then let us go before the Gopal deity, and you can make a promise to the Gopal deity that you're going to offer your daughter to me. Because at least the culture at that time was that if you promise something before the deity, then you have to keep that vow. People actually believed that Krishna was all powerful, and that if you lied to the deity, then there would be serious repercussions for it. So the elderly Brahmana went before Gopal deity and promised his daughter in marriage to the younger Brahmin. Later on, of course, when they returned from pilgrimage, one day the elderly Brahmin called his family members together and said that, my dear relatives, on the pilgrimage, I was with this younger Brahmin, and he was so helpful and such a nice servant to me that I decided that I give my younger daughter in charity to this young Brahmin. But his family members were not very happy about this. His wife said, if you do that, then I'll take poison and kill myself. The Brahmin's son said that this will destroy our family. How can we offer our daughter to an uneducated, poor Brahmin? If you do that, everyone will leave the family. So the elderly Brahmin was very disturbed. He didn't know what to do. But he said, well, what happens when the Brahmin comes and he asks for my daughter? I promised him before that I'd give him my daughter in charity. before the deity. So the Brahmin's son said, don't worry about it. When he comes, I'll do everything. You just say you can't remember quite what your promise was. Eventually, the younger Brahmin came and to the house of the elder Brahmin and said, my dear elder Brahmin, you promised your daughter in charity, so what will you do now? So the elder Brahmin said, well, I can't quite remember what I promised. And then the younger Brahmin came and said, you rascal, I know what you did. When you were on pilgrimage with my father, you gave him a poison datura and you made him crazy. You stole all his money, and now you're claiming that he promised you his daughter. So the Brahmin's son took up a stick and chased the younger Brahmin away. So the younger Brahmin went to the townspeople and told them that what had happened, that this elder Brahmin had promised me his daughter in marriage, but now his relatives are against it, and therefore he says he can't remember. But actually, it's a great sin if this elder Brahmin doesn't fulfill his promise, and that's my only concern. So the townspeople came to the house of the older Brahmin and asked him, what are you going to do? Did you actually promise your daughter in charity to this younger Brahmin? So the elder Brahmin said, I can't quite remember. There was something about some deity or something, but I can't quite remember. So the younger Brahmin said, well, actually, you had made your promise before the Gopal deity, and therefore I'll go to Vrindavan and I'll ask Gopal to come here and he can act as a witness. So all the townspeople said, this is a good idea. You should go there and get Gopal as your witness. And the elder Brahmin said, this is a good idea, that you should go to Vrindavan and you should get Gopal to come here as a witness. And the Brahmin's son said, yes, sure, call Gopal, let him come here as a witness. Because he thought, how could a statue come and act as a witness? This is impossible. Sure, let him come and act as a witness. So everyone was in agreement. The younger Brahmin went back to Vrindavan. He met Gopal, and Gopal, he went before the Gopal deity and said, my dear Gopal deity, my dear Gopal, remember that I was here with the elderly Brahmin, and he promised before you he was going to give me his daughter in charity. Now his relatives are against it, so I request you to come and act as a witness to tell everyone that the elderly Brahmin had promised his daughter in charity to me. Now, I don't want his daughter for sense gratification. I have no material desire, but I'm simply concerned about the honesty and the truthfulness of this elderly Brahmin, that he fulfills his promise that he made before you. So the Gopal deity, this Brahmin was so advanced that he could talk with the deity. So Gopal said, well, actually, I'm a deity and I've never heard of a deity walking. So I don't know how I can go there. What I could do is I can manifest myself in my four-armed form of Narayan and act as a witness. But the younger Brahmin said, well, actually, I said that you were going to come personally. You're the witness, not your four-armed form. So you should come. Otherwise, you'll get sinful reactions for you're supposed to come here and act as a witness. This is the proper thing to do. If you don't, I'm afraid what will happen to you. So Gopal said, well, I'd like to come, but deities just don't walk. But the younger Brahmin said, well, my dear Gopal, if you can talk, then surely you can walk. So Gopal thought about it and said, well, that makes perfect sense. So he said, all right, I'll come and act as a witness. But you walk ahead of me and I'll walk behind. You'll know that I'm following you because you'll hear the tinkling sound of my ankle bells. And every day you cook 1 kilo of rice and offer it to me. But don't look back, because as soon as you look back, I'm going to stand exactly where you see me. So the Brahmin walked back to Vidyanagara from Vrindavan. And Gopal followed him. And the younger Brahmin heard his ankle bells and cooked 1 kilo of rice every day for Gopal. And finally, they arrived at the village or the town where he came from. And he couldn't hear the ankle bells, so he looked back and he saw Gopal smiling. And then the younger Brahmin called all the townspeople together, and with the elderly Brahmin and his family, and Gopal acted as the witness there and said that the elderly Brahmin had promised his daughter in charity to this younger Brahmin. So we can see that actually Krishna will reciprocate with us according to our consciousness, according to our faith, we could say, in Krishna. If we think, oh, if I talk to Krishna, then, how can Krishna possibly answer? It would be very embarrassing, Therefore, better off not to talk to Krishna. Or if I talk to Krishna and I think, oh, Krishna has to answer me, because after all, I talk to him, so he has to follow my commandment. No, Krishna, he can talk, but he only talks to people who are qualified. One has to become qualified. Just like a big personality in this world, if you want to see the President of the United States, you just don't call up and say, hey, Mr. President, I think I'll drop by this afternoon, and see you around 5 o'clock. So please be there. No, it's very unlikely the president is going to put on the schedule that you're going to drop by at 5 o'clock, and he better be there. So similarly, Krishna is the president of all the universes. So how much is Krishna obliged to any of us? But if one offers Krishna something with love, if one has a loving relationship with him, then Krishna will actually be obliged. Prabhupada gives the example of, there was one famous prime minister under Queen Victoria, and one man came to see him. And the secretary said, Mr. Prime Minister is busy right now. He'll see you as soon as he's done with his present appointment. So the man said, yes, I'll wait. So he waited 1 hour, and there was no response from the Prime Minister, although he had an appointment to see him an hour before. Finally, he decided to peek and see what into the room, through the door, and see what the Prime Minister was doing. And he looked in and he saw the Prime Minister was on his hands and knees, and on his back was his grandson. And his grandson was riding the Prime Minister throughout the room, saying, giddy up horsey, giddy up horsey. So the Prime Minister was acting as a horse for his grandson and riding him around the room. So he's the Prime Minister of England, which at that time was practically ruling most of the world. And yet he's acting as a horse for his grandson out of love. So similarly, Krishna, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can oblige him to do anything. But out of love, he sometimes takes even his own devotees on his shoulders, and he carries them around. Like when he fights with the coward boys, if he loses, then he's obliged to take the cowherd boy on his shoulders and carry him around for some time. So Krishna is full, but if we are sincere in our service to Krishna, then Krishna will accept our offering to him. So Prabhupada gives the example when he was installing Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkanath, the little deities in Los Angeles. He mentioned first he started to mention about Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, who is a very great devotee in the mood of parental love, who treated his deity just like his son. But then he talked about Madan Mohan. In the story of Madan Mohan, Sanatana Goswami was living in Vrindavan. Vrindavan wasn't like it is now. There was no Loy Bazaar. You couldn't go down to the sweet shop, purchase rasguls and gulab jamuns. It was just a forest. And even at that time, there were wild animals in the forest. But Sanatana Goswami was living underneath a tree. There wasn't even a temple at that time. And he was doing madhukari in order to survive. Madhukari means, madhu means bee, kari means to do. So to do like the bee. He used to go door to door and beg some roti. There was no chapatis at that time, like we have now. Nor in Vrindavan at that time was it very easy to get ghee or butter. What people used to do is grind some flour with a rock or something, mash it up, and with some water make it into a dough, into a ball, and then throw that ball into the fire. It wasn't exactly, oven cooked. There was no ovens. There's just an open fire cooking the roti, which meant that, practically speaking, half of it would be burnt and half of it would be raw. And then Sanatana Goswami would beg some roti, and then that's what he would eat. So one day he was doing madhukari, and he came to a house of one Brahmin. Now the Brahmin previously in the evening, the previous night, he had a dream. He said that Gopal, who was this particular Brahmin, he had a deity named Madan Mohan. And Madan Mohan was on his altar, but he treated the deity, because he was a very advanced devotee, just like his son. As a matter of fact, that this family of devotees was so advanced that sometimes Madan Mohan would come off the altar and play with the Brahmin's sons. But in that night, Madan Mohan came to this Brahmin and told him that tomorrow one mendicant will come. His name is Sanatana Goswami, and he's all by himself. And because he's my great devotee, I like to go and live with him. So the Brahmin was obliged, because he was told by Madan Mohan he should do that. So when Sanatana Goswami came to the Brahmin's house, he was told that Madan Mohan wants to live with you. Sanatana Goswami said, well, that's all right, but I'm a very poor mendicant. I don't even have a house to live in. But that's all right. Madan Mohan is very tolerant. Whatever you give him, he'll accept. So Prabhupada said that Sanatana Goswami was talking with Madan Mohan one day. Because Sanatana Goswami had no temple, he was hanging his deity on a tree, on a branch of the tree. So Madan Mohan said to him, Sanatan, you are bringing all these dry chapatis and it's stale. You don't even give me even a little salt. How can I eat? So Sanatana Goswami said, sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I can't even hardly move. I'm an old man. You see, so Krishna had to eat that. And then Prabhupada chuckled. Because the bhakta is offering, he cannot refuse. Ye mam bhaktya priyacheti. The real thing is bhakti, Prabhupada said. What can you offer to Krishna? Everything belongs to Krishna. What have you got? What is your value? And what is the value of the things, of your things? It is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhakti. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten, fallen. And then Prabhupada started to cry. But I brought this thing for you. Please take. This will be accepted. Don't be puffed up. Always be careful. You're dealing with Krishna. That is my request. So devotional service can be very simple if there's bhakti, and when there's not bhakti, it's very, very complicated. One could study for millions of years, tapi te deva bhajam pujo dvaya prasada lesha granita evahi. Janati Tadvam Bhagavan Mahimno, that one can go on studying for thousands and thousands of years, but if one doesn't get the mercy of Krishna, then it'll all go in vain. But without bhakti, devotional service really doesn't have very much meaning to it. So we should offer something to Krishna with some love, and we offer the best thing. Krishna here, he's asking for a leaf, a flower, some fruit, or some water. But that doesn't mean we have the deity in our house or in the temple, and then we offer him a little water, a piece of fruit, a leaf we pick up from the ground, and hope he'll be satisfied and give us everything we need or we want. No, we should offer the nicest thing we can to Krishna. One time Prabhupada came to a temple in India, and he noticed that the deity was not very nicely taken care of. That the garlands that were offered to the deity were old and not very nicely made. And Prabhupada mentioned in the lecture, he said that there's a difference between Vigraha, the deity, and Galagraha. Vigraha means the form of Krishna in the temple, and Galagraha means the pain in the neck. So Prabhupada said that my spiritual master is giving me this deity to worship, and he's left, and now I have this burden around my neck. I have to offer this deity something. So let me offer him some garbage flour. I've been doing this for some time, and he never objects. I guess he's satisfied with it. So Prabhupada said, yes, the deity won't object. He won't say anything. He'll keep on smiling. But his objection is that you'll go to hell. That will be his objection. So we can't teach Krishna. Krishna knows exactly what we're doing, and he reciprocates. So the whole world is in ignorance. They don't know that Krishna is God. They don't know that everything belongs to Krishna. And therefore, they're engaged in all kinds of sinful activities. Brahmins, or those in the mode of goodness, are engaged in less sinful activity. But everyone, due to ignorance, but by not knowing that Krishna is a proprietor, that everyone is more or less a thief. And therefore, because they're stealing from Krishna, therefore Maya is always giving some chastisement, some punishment in the different forms. And of course, when people come to the platform where they're engaged in gross sinful activities, such as killing the cow or other animals, illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, when they're simply grossly gratifying their senses, then the reaction is even more severe. But if we want peace, then we have to recognize that Krishna is the owner of everything and that everything should be offered to him. And then, just like a small child, he's completely dependent on his father. He can't do anything without his father, practically speaking. But sometimes the child brings his father a piece of candy that he received, and he offers it to the father and asks him to eat the candy first. So the father is actually the provider for the son, but he's very pleased by the offering of his son out of love. And then the father says, oh, it's very nice. All right, I shall eat it. So Prabhupada said, that's love. So Krishna, we offer something to Krishna out of love and Krishna eats it, then what more can we want? Then Krishna becomes our most intimate friend. So he's full, he has nothing to accept, but he likes that you offer him something. Just like a rich father, he has nothing to get from his son, but sometimes the son grows up and he makes the money and then he offers something to the father, so the father is very pleased. And then one becomes a pet son of the father. Just like Prabhupada gives the example that the river Ganges, people, or the river Jamuna, people bathe in the river Ganges or the river Jamuna, and they offer the water at the end of the bath. They take some water and they offer it back to the Ganges. So the Ganges didn't lose anything when the devotee took water out of the Ganges. And when the worshiper offers the water back to the Ganges, it didn't gain anything. But it's a process of consciousness. The worship is not a question of material gain or loss. It's a question of offering with the proper consciousness. So let me go on to read some more of the purport. Here, Lord Krishna, having established that he is the only enjoyer, the primeval Lord, and the real object of all sacrificial offerings, reveals what type of sacrifices he desires to be offered. If he desires such things as if one wishes to engage in devotional service to the Supreme Lord in order to be purified and reach the goal of life, the transcendent loving service of God, then one should find out what the Lord desires of him. One who loves Krishna will give him whatever he wants, and he avoids offering anything which is undesirable or unasked for. Thus, meat, fish, and eggs should not be offered to Krishna. If he desires such things as offerings, he would have said so. Instead, he clearly requests that leaf, fruit, flowers, and water be offered to him. And he says of this offering, I'll accept it. Therefore, we should understand that he will not accept meat, fish, and eggs. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk, and water are the proper food for human beings and are prescribed by the Lord himself. Whatever we eat, whatever else we eat cannot be offered to him, since he will not accept it. Thus, we cannot be acting on the level of loving devotion if we offer such food. One thing we can note is that we eat not only with our tongue, but we also eat through all our senses. Eating is a process of digesting. When we smell something, we digest it in order to smell it. When we see something, our eyes digest it in order to see it. We hear something, our ears digest, our brain digests it in order to understand what it is, to hear it. So we eat throughout all our senses. But out of all the senses, Atakshi Krishna Namani, Nabravet Grayam Indriyai, Sevan Mukhe Hujivado, Swayam Evas Pratyada. That of all the senses, the tongue is the most important to engage in Krishna service. Of course, service begins with the hearing. That we have to hear transcendental sound vibration to get the intelligence how to engage the tongue in Krishna service. But if we hear and hear and hear, and we don't engage the tongue in Krishna service, then our hearing will have no effect. Therefore, Krishna says, Atakshi Krishna Namadi, Nabravet Grayam Indriyai, Sevam Hido Ado. So the first service is to engage our tongue in Krishna's service. Atakshi Krishna Namadi, Nabravet Grayam Indriyai. But with our gross material senses, we cannot actually understand Krishna. Sevam Mukha Jivado. So first we engage the tongue in Krishna service, Swayam Evas Pratyada. And then Krishna will reveal himself to us. So why the tongue? Because as Sri Rupa Goswami said, Ati Ahara, eating the wrong things in the wrong way is the first problem we have. It was the first reason why we're in material existence. We've come here to the material existence to try to control and enjoy. Principally speaking, the feeling that we're the controller is in itself an enjoyment, but in order to complete that enjoyment, then we also want to satisfy our senses with those objects. Just like Krishna is the supreme controller, and out of love, he's satisfied with the objects, his devotees, giving him loving service. So we expect the material energy here in the form of sound, in the form of taste, in this form of smell, form of touch, to control these things and give us pleasure. And the first thing we want pleasure from is the tongue. Now the tongue requires that something is offered, surrenders to us. The most basic thing of surrender is some carrot fallen, giving us dandavats on our plate, offering us respects, asking to surrender before us, asking to enter into us and empower us. So in the future, we can eat cauliflowers and other things. So when we see the carrot paying full respects to us on our plate, offering its body for our satisfaction, then naturally we want to enjoy it. And that's this feeling of controlling and enjoying lust creates greed, which leads to anger, which leads to delusion, which means forgetfulness that actually this carrot doesn't belong to us, it belongs to Krishna. And then we lose our intelligence. And first it's carrots, and then it's glove diamonds, and then it's other things. And we become more and more desirous of controlling the material world for our own personal enjoyment, and become deluded into thinking ourselves the supreme lords here in the material world, looking around for other things to control and enjoy in the material world. First it's the carrot, and ultimately it's Romeo and Juliet, or Tarzan and Jane, or Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. Something will be there to control and enjoy. But when one recognizes that this carrot, this glove diamond, and other things belong to Krishna. And at first, let Krishna eat, let him enjoy. And whatever he offers back to me, I will also take as his prasadam. So that when there's love there for Krishna, then the whole atmosphere becomes purified. Then the consciousness is changed. And instead of having a desire to lord it over and enjoy the material nature, one has a desire to utilize the material nature for the satisfaction of Krishna. And then automatically, when Krishna is satisfied, when one experiences his happiness, then one becomes purified of all material desires and misconceptions. So sometimes Prabhupada goes on and saying, here Krishna, having established that he's the only enjoyer, the primeval Lord, and the real object of all sacrificial offerings, reveals what types of sacrifices he desires to be offered. If one wishes to engage in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, in order to be purified and reach the goal of life, the transcendent loving service of God, then one should find out what the Lord desires of him. So, Krishna, first of all, wants us to eat prasad. He doesn't want us to eat animals, especially the cow. The reason why, as Prabhupada said, we have these wars that go on is because of the slaughter of cows. Because people are slaughtering cows in the slaughterhouse, therefore their children get slaughtered in the slaughterhouse, in the field of slaughter of the war. So as long as slaughter is going on, especially the cow, then we can expect wars and pestilence and famine and disease to go on due to the sinful reactions of the most abominable activity of slaughtering the cow, what to speak of one's children and other living entities. The cow is considered to be our mother, and the mother gives milk, which is the basic food which can nourish our brain so we can understand things clearly, and also nourishes the body. And the cow gives its milk out of love for its calf, and therefore the consciousness of the cow's milk, when given out of love, is out of bhakti, the kind of bhakti in the material world. The closest thing to bhakti in the material world is cow taking care of its calf, or the mother taking care of its child. But if we take our mother and we slaughter her and eat her, that's the opposite of bhakti. So Prabhupada said that one who loves Krishna will give him whatever he wants and he avoids offering anything which is undesirable or unasked. Thus meat, fish, and eggs should not be offered to Krishna. If he desired such things as offerings, he would have said so. Instead, he clearly requests that a leaf, fruit, flowers, and water be given to him. And he says of this offering, I will accept it. Therefore, we should understand that he will not accept meat, fish, and eggs. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk, and water are the proper foods for human beings and prescribed by the Lord himself. Whatever else we eat cannot be offered to him, since he will not accept it. Thus, we cannot act on the level of loving devotion if we offer such foods. So this not only applies to food, but it applies to anything we're doing. We should first find out what Krishna wants us to do, what he wants us to smell, what he wants us to see, what he wants us to hear, and do that as an offering to him, as Krishna will explain in the next verse. But if one at least takes prasad, food offered to Krishna, then it's every likelihood that this tendency to try to lord it over the material nature and enjoy it independently of Krishna will gradually diminish. And Prabhupada writes in the last paragraph, the impersonalist philosophers who wish to maintain that the absolute truth is without senses cannot comprehend this verse of Bhagavad Gita. To them is either a metaphor or proof of the mundane character of Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. But in actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has senses, and it's stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other. This is what it means to say that Krishna is absolute. Lacking senses, he could hardly be considered full in all opulences. In the 7th chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates the living entities into material nature. This is done by his looking upon material nature. And so in this instance, Krishna is hearing the devotees' words of love and offering foodstuffs is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized. Because of his absolute position, his hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Not only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself without interpretation can understand that the Supreme Absolute Truth can eat food and enjoy it. So Prabhupada, in one lecture, he talked about his meeting with one impersonalist from the Arya Samaj group. The Aryan Samaj group says that Krishna may be everywhere, but he's not in the temple. So Prabhupada had a discussion with him. The man asked Prabhupada, he said, do you actually believe that Krishna eats what you're offering him? And Prabhupada said, why not? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he eats what is offered to him with love and devotion. And then Prabhupada said, well, I'm a third-class person, and you're also a third-class person. So who should I believe? Why should I not believe Krishna, what he says in Bhagavad Gita? It's a question of faith. Now, even an ordinary person, they have faith in something. For instance, if I want to travel from here to another country like America, then I go to the ticket office and I buy an airplane ticket. Now, I have faith when I give them their money that this ticket actually has some value. That with this ticket, I'll be able to get on the airplane and go to my destination. So even in ordinary dealings, we have to have faith. So many people have purchased a ticket like this from this particular company, and they've gotten on a plane and they've gone to that destination. Otherwise, we wouldn't purchase the airplane ticket. Therefore, Prabhupada used to emphasize that so many acharyas, they followed this process and they've explained about the wonderful things that have happened to them by doing so. So these are saintly personalities who have full knowledge of scripture, and they're telling us what the process is of becoming Krishna conscious. Therefore, our process is of following the Mahajans. Tarko apratishta shutiya vibhina nisavari sharyasyanabhinam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena katha sapanta. We may go on arguing whether Krishna, he accepts or not the food. That's all right. There's logic and argument that Krishna is God, and therefore why should he not? If we have senses, why should we not believe that God, our Father, the original Father, also has senses like we do? If we can eat, why can't he eat? Nisabri Shri Ishanabhinam. And even the great, well, in the scriptures, there are many different explanations. Some of them say one thing and some say another. But we should find out, and some great sages, they say one thing, and some great sages say another thing. But if we actually want to know the truth, then the truth is hidden in the heart of a self-realized person. So we have to choose someone that we think is self-realized, and we have to follow them. Mahajana yena katha sabhanta. So those who are in the mode of ignorance, they choose Ravana or Hiranyakashipu as their leader. Those in the mode of passion, they choose someone like some wealthy industrialist as their leader. Those in the mode of goodness choose some philanthropist as their leader. But the devotees, they have to find someone who understands the eternality of the self, of the soul, and the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and follow the path to realize Krishna, eternal path. Then we can see, if we follow that path, how much progress we're making by, as Krishna says, susukam kartum aviram. It is the joyfully performed, and it gives direct perception of the self by realization. Otherwise, Prabhupada said, he gave the example when he was in Moscow, when he was visiting Professor Kataski. Prabhupada tried to explain to Professor Kataski about the difference between the soul and the body, but Professor Kataski couldn't understand that. And then Prabhupada explained about there's first-class people in the mode of goodness, and that the aim of society is to create people who are clean and truthful and austere and sense and mind control to be the leaders. But Professor Kutaski couldn't understand that or accept it. And then finally Prabhupada said, well, actually your philosophy in one sense is the same as ours. Our philosophy is that you have to choose a leader and you have to follow it, whoever the leader is. And wherever the leader is going, that's where you're going. So you've chosen Lenin as your leader, and wherever he's gone, that's where you're going to go. And we've chosen Krishna as our leader. Wherever he goes, that's where we're going to go. So everyone has to choose a leader. If we believe there's such a thing as eternity, that there's such a thing as happiness, eternal happiness full of awareness and consciousness, then we can follow this process, simple process, with love and devotion, offer something to Krishna, especially offering food to Krishna is very important and stressed by Krishna in this verse. And then we can see the happy result of how our consciousness becomes purified, and gradually we come to the goal of having Krishna being pleased with us, becoming an intimate associate of Krishna, and making our lives perfect. So thank you, Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question?
Yes, that's your first question. You can ask another one.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, accept my humble obeisances. This is Yulia from Vrindavan, who you wrote the letter today. And I have a question, how to make the difference between bhakti, automatic action, and the action where you enjoy the process, like singing and listening to kirtan. Thank you.
Well, it depends how you're sitting and listening to kirtan. If you're in Krishna, he's a reservoir of all pleasure, and he's none different from his name. Therefore, sitting there and experiencing Krishna's happiness is the goal of our life. We should hear with appreciation and love the holy name. But if we think it's some ordinary song and we're trying to enjoy some ordinary song, and we don't understand that it's Krishna himself, and we're just listening to it just like we listen to some rock music or some rap music, then it still has its effect, but it'll take much longer because we have the wrong attitude. So our attitude, whatever we're doing, is first of all, we're doing it because Krishna and his representatives have asked us to do it. And we're doing it in such a way as to please him. So to hear the sound of the holy name with appreciation and try to feel Krishna's presence, because we can think about the holy name, so by hearing about it. And when we can remember his name, his form, his quality, his pastimes, his associates, when we can feel their presence and their loving exchanges, that means we're actually taking part in the loving pastimes of Krishna. So Krishna, that's what he wants us to do. That's the whole purpose of our philosophy. To hear, as Prabhupada said, the art of Krishna consciousness is the art of focusing one's attention and then giving our love to Krishna. So we should focus our attention on hearing, appreciating that Krishna is present along with his associates in the holy name, And we should try to love and appreciate with full appreciation Krishna, the name, the people who are chanting, and therefore Krishna will be very pleased to reveal himself through the holy name. And our natural love for Krishna will gradually be manifested, will be invoked by hearing the holy name with love and attention. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments?